Hi, I'm Celeste, and this is 10 Minutes of History from the Balboa Island Museum. And today, a very fun subject, we're going to talk about toys. We have a section in the museum here that I'm sitting in where we usually have toys out for kids to come in and get a feel for historic toys, toys that their grandparents or their parents played with, all these things that you can touch and feel. Right now, we're in the pandemic, so we have those things upstairs in our attic, but they'll be coming back down as soon as it's safe to do so. I want to start this by talking about something local, which is the toy shop in Corona del Mar, Newport Beach, that so many of us remember fondly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So most likely if you were having a birthday, you got a birthday present from the toy shop. And here's a picture of it. It was on the corner of Jasmine and East Coast Highway, which is where Crown Hardware is today. And the door, if you remember, the door was actually on the corner of the building, so it was facing the round curved side of the building, and it had the big drum sign. So some people just called it the drum store when they were kids, because that's what they associated it with. Now, I know that so many of you I see online, I see your postings, you're going to be very excited to see what I have here, because what I have is the birthday book from that toy shop that was given to us by the McNeely family. So Billy McNeely was the person who started that store in about 1960, and her son Pat worked there when he was a teenager, and then later he and his wife Candy McNeely, they ran that store. Those are the people that I remember running the store when I was buying presents in the 70s and in the 80s. And in there was this birthday book, and I know that many of you know that your name is in this book. So I'm going to just read you a couple of pages. For the purpose of this book was to track the dates. So every page in this book has a date at the top, and then there's different handwritings for whoever it was working to put the birthdays in here and to keep track so that people could come in and know when your birthday was. They also would give you a little present on your birthday if you were in the birthday book. And so I know from again online that many of you were very excited about that prospect of it. So here I'm going to be like Santa Claus here and read you some birthdays. February 13th we have Sarah Petrie, born in 1980. Mostly these are people I know. Matt Hoyt, March 14th. March 26th, Allison Holleran. Let's see. May 22nd, I have Colby Northridge. Oh, and Curtis Husband right below him. Lots of people that familiar names to me. I worked in the schools for a long time. Let's see, we have the Fracolosi twins on May 27th, and let's see, we'll just finish this up. Nadia Vaughn, June 2nd, a big tennis player at Corona del Mar High School. So just a very fun book. We are honored that the McNeelys trusted us with this book, and we keep it here in this case in the museum. You don't have access to it when you come in, but we do open the pages and switch those from time to time. So anyway, a lovely book, something that we're so honored to have here. Let's see, I'm gonna set it right here on this book. So toys, basically going back to the beginning of time, there were toys for children, mostly for really small children to keep them busy while their parents were working. Kids in the 5 years old and up age, they didn't have time for a lot of toys because they were working. Before we had child labor laws, some kids were working 7 days a week or going to church all day on Sundays, and so there wasn't a lot of time for toys, and they didn't manufacture toys. Most toys were things that you made. You'd make tops. Tops were made out of spools. There's a big spool, little spool. You just stick a pointed stick in there, and that turns you into this top. And these don't even have a point on the bottom. But these work really well, and we keep these out here to be played with. So we have tops. That was a big one. Then later on, this is tin. The top goes into this form. I don't know, maybe some of you in the 50s had one with the train one around it, because that was very popular too. Hoops were a huge toy, even back to the beginning of time. There was a game, I think in France, called Graces, where you had a hoop and a stick, and you flung that hoop from one girl to the other. It was a girl's game to play, and you caught it with the stick. Boys mostly took a stick and ran it along the ground. I'm sure you'd see that in old movies with kids with a big hoop just running alongside it and to try and keep it going. So that was, you know, huge. Also, anything that taught you hand-eye coordination in the beginning, I mean, this is a modern form of the paddle ball, but this would have been made to teach boys, especially who were doing the hunting, hand-eye. This is one of the very first toys invented. Originally, it was a stick with a point, and then some sort of a ball or a plane that had a hole in it, and the object was to get it onto that stick. It morphed into this cup and ball game, which we could still buy today. This is a skill that you need to master when you first start to try it. It's kind of hard to do, but after you get the hang of it, you can get it in there pretty easy. And kids here love playing with this one. And then string. I mean, any kind of string. Obviously, just a plain old string can turn into the cat's cradle game, and that's a very ancient game. It's a game that was used to teach weaving patterns originally. This is something I used to do for endless hours. My mom made all our clothes, and so she had a sewing room, and I would just sit in her sewing room for hours with a button and a string, and if you just looped it through here. This was an early American toy they called the buzzsaw, same exact principle, and you just spun it like this, as tight as you could, and then basically you're just watching that disc, it's a button or whatever, just spin around in a buzzsaw, like a buzzsaw would work in a sawmill. So let's see, I think that's about all I have for the really early toys. But as you can see, I mean, most of toys were made. Kids didn't have a lot of toys. Maybe they had one toy. So dolls, of course, were popular from the very beginning. This is a Barbie doll, which came out in the 50s. But doll of any sort, you could make it out of corn cobs, you could make it out of clay. There were dolls that were made out of wood faces. Then later we got porcelain faces, and then when we have plastic manufactured, we get these in plastic. Card games, mostly for adults. This didn't come out for kids until later, but I don't know if you're me, these are actually original. So do you remember playing Snap and Old Maid and Crazy Eights? We still play today, but Snap and Old Maid you don't see as often. So these were games you played with your grandma. I played those with my grandma. And then pick up sticks, another coordination game. This was a very, very early game played by people from the beginning of time. Not plastic, of course, but the object is to pick up the sticks, to knock them out and pick up the sticks without moving the other sticks. So, and then jacks. I don't have jacks here with me today, but I'm in our case either. Jacks and marbles. So jacks, originally they would use animal knuckles, the knuckle bones from animals, and any kind of thing you could throw. It could even be a rock. And just to see you threw the rock up and how you pick them up in order. First you pick up one, then you throw it again, pick up two, throw it again, pick up three. And so that's the whole premise of jacks. My mom's favorite game. So my mom was born in the 20s, so jacks was super popular there. And marbles, my dad's favorite game. So marbles originally would be clay or wood, and then later they're made out of Venetian marble, of course. That's how they get their name, marble. And the object of that, for most kids, there's certain different ways you could play marbles, but would be that you would draw a circle in the sand, and you'd shoot your marbles at the other people's marbles, and if you could knock their marble out of the circle, you got to keep that marble. So it was a game of skill and a little bit of gambling in there too. So like I said before the 1800s, not that many toys. I mean, toys weren't really promoted for kids, so it was whatever your parent made you. But in the 1800s, we get some interesting toys. First of all, I love this story. And it may or may not be true, but this is the most adapted story that we have. The Frisbee Pie Company. So the Frisbee Pie Company from Bridgeport, Connecticut. They the students, the college students around that area, the kids from Yale, I think, claimed this most, decided this was really fun to throw, all right, and that you could throw it back and forth with each other. And so, and it's FRISBIE Pie Company. And later, of course, this morphs into the Frisbee, which is spelled EE at the end, and it's produced by Wham-O. So this is in the 1800s. Trains also become popular in the 1800s, and we're going to show you a great train set at the end of this. So I think, am I already at 10 minutes? Because this is going to go longer today. So This will be 15 minutes of history. How about that? All right, so that was the 1800s. In the beginning of the 1900s, we get the teddy bear, named after Teddy Roosevelt, and then other stuffed animals, which come along later. Everybody, did y'all have a lamb chop like I did? Crayons. Of course, we had some type of this, like an oil pastel, but these were the ones that were definitely manufactured for children. The inventors of this in the 1800s, they had a company that manufactured tires, and especially tire blacking to make them really black. They did shoe polish, ink, and they came up with this idea of doing crayons for kids. The original Crayola box, and Crayola was the first people that made these for children. The original Crayola box was 5 cents, 8 crayons. You got the regular rainbow of colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then they added brown and black. And the wife of the inventor said we should name it Crayola, which basically just means oily chalk if you translate that into French. So that happened in 1903. In 1913, we get the erector set. I know that sounds really far back, but that's when it originally came out. This was most likely from the 50s, because he looks like he's from the 50s. I think my brother had one of those too. And then in 1914, we get the Tinker Toy. And basically just watching kids put sticks into things. And so the inventor said, yeah, if kids like to stick sticks and make things into structures that way, then he would make that. Let's see, 1920s we come in, of course, Mickey Mouse comes out in his first movie, and Disney starts promoting Disney products. Frank Lloyd Wright's son, John, watched his dad build a building with this structure with the interlocking logs and to make it earthquake proof, and he invented the Lincoln log, which we have right here. They were, of course, originally wood. All the pieces in this set are wood, and he did name them after Abraham Lincoln, and the original sets had a picture of Lincoln on the outside. The yo-yo came out in 29. I never really liked the yo-yo. I do remember that my brother broke the overhead light in his bedroom with a yo-yo, so they were probably banned from our house. I just never really got the hang of it, and I think that people either loved them or not, because it took a bit of work to get it to go and to be able to be good at it. Same thing with the etch-a-sketch, which we'll get to in the 60s. In the 1930s and the 40s, board games really become popular, and so but that's the time where you're mostly going to do that, and that's mostly all that was really invented is for toys that I could find in the 30s, except for in the 40s. In 1942, a naval engineer invents the slinky, and he said it was by completely by accident. He had a spring coil on his workbench that fell down and did the whole slinky thing, down, 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 and he thought, oh, that's fun, let's make it into a toy, and so that's exactly what he did. In the 50s, we got the Ant Farm, Tonka toys, and Barbie, which I showed you before, and this great guy right here, Mr. Potato Head. And his claim to fame is that in 1952, this was the first commercial that came out on TV that was focused directly for children. And it was to promote Mr. Potato Head. Now, that was 1952. The parts were actually invented in the 40s during World War II, and so this man came out and thought, hey, this is great, we'll sell these little pieces, you'll stick it in a potato, the kids will love it. The problem is that during the war, nobody wanted to buy into this to manufacture it, because they felt it was a waste of food. I mean, we were doing rationing in the 40s, and victory gardens and the whole thing, and so just using a potato as a toy just didn't seem right. And so what he did was he manufactured this, and they put it in cereal boxes because they didn't think people would buy it. So these little parts, there weren't that many parts. And originally he had, 2 eyes and a mouth and some ears and a pipe and a couple of hats, I think is what he started with. The parents complained because when they finally did manufacture these in the 50s, the parts had these really sharp pins that you stuck them in with, and of course we had all kinds of dangerous toys back in the 50s. The parents said, no, we don't like these really sharp points, and plus they were finding rotten potatoes under their kids' beds that had been there for who knows how long. And so that's when they came out with these pieces that are the dull points that go in. And also they manufactured the plastic potato. They say that they originally sent the first sets out with a styrofoam potato, which I don't recall that. I just remember having the pieces that we put in the potato, and we put them in other vegetables too. And then also the plastic one that comes out today that has a little drawer in the back where you can put all the parts in. So that's Mr. Potato Head. Then we get to the 60s where we get the Etch-a-Sketch, G.I. Joe, Hot Wheels, and the Nerf ball. The Etch-a-Sketch, I feel the same way about this as the yo-yo. I don't think that many people took the time to actually master this, so it's something you pick up for about 30 seconds, make a couple straight lines up and down, and you're pretty much done with it. If you don't recall how it works, it's an aluminum process here inside, and then you shook it and erased it. You can start over again. So let's see. This was just here to show you that we had plastic manufacturing coming in after the war. Did I talk about Play-Doh? I missed Play-Doh. Okay, so Play-Doh came out in the 50s as well. And this is an interesting story. It was created as a cleaning product. And the purpose of it was that you took the Play-Doh and you shoved it into corners of things in order to get coal dust, like out of manufacturing pieces and equipment. And so it would pull it out. I see that they still have things that like that today, where you stick it into crevices to get dust out. And that was the reason that it was created. And then obviously kids played with it and thought that was a great toy, so they started making coloring. And I've taught a lot of art. This is the best way to teach color blending. If you take, different colors of Play-Doh and let the kids slowly blend it, it brings home that fact of them playing with Play-Doh. When plastic comes out too, we get this, and I think all of you kids of the 60s will remember this because we all had one assigned to us in class. And did anybody ever really master this either? We called this tonettes when I was in school. And I think the only thing I ever learned to play was hot cross buns. Isn't that the first thing they always showed us? So, all right, thanks for letting me go over. This is a fun subject. Obviously, I love it. We go through our case here. So when you come in, I know it's hard, you can't see this right now, but we have all of these little Cracker Jack prizes that Shirley Pett is our past board president. Her mother donated those. We have the cootie game that I used to play with my grandma. A couple of lunch boxes up there. My roller skates, my clip-on roller skates with the gear. I don't have a key on this one. This one had a screw gear on it. And then a bunch of Boy Scout things in here too for. And of course your raccoon skin cap that every boy had to have when Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone came out. So I'm going to leave you with a great shot here. Britt's going to turn the camera and show you Ben Abrams' Lionel train set here. Trains came out in the middle of the 1800s when train travel became really popular, and that's when these sets came out. And the battery-operated Lionel train set came out because they were asked to manufacture one to put around a Christmas tree in a department store window, and it wasn't for sale, but everybody was more interested in the train than the other things in the window, and so that's kind of how they took off. So anyway, we're going to show you that, and I'll say goodbye, and thanks for listening.